Sometimes you can be wrong while still being right. What do I mean by that is sometimes you can technically have the right answers. But if you have no idea how you got to the right answer, are you really right about anything, right? Can you recreate it? Can you replicate, right? If I somehow magically made a full court shot in a basketball game, does it matter? No, because I clearly cannot reproduce that result all the time, right? So when it comes to this conversation that I saw on ESPN, and I'm not going to lie, I was going to do like a Jacoby Brissett film breakdown. That's probably going to drop tomorrow. But then I saw this video and I had to talk about it, right? And it's Louis Riddick, who I like, Mel Kiper, who I like, Mike Greenberg, who I like, and Mike Tannenbaum, who, room for improvement right there, right? And they're all talking about, should a team start Baker or should they draft a rookie quarterback? And you know how these conversations usually go. This one went particularly interesting, which is why I want to talk about it. And remember what I said earlier. Sometimes you could be wrong while still having the right answer. And I think that's emblematic of the whole conversation around Baker Mayfield on the internet, right? A lot of people are right and a lot of people are wrong, but the way that they're getting there is just wild sometimes. So we're going to play this video and we're going to critique it.
How do you see Baker Mayfield in the scheme of this, Mel? You're aware that teams have that decision. It's almost like another option on their draft board, if you will. How do you slot Mayfield into this decision?
The money was what Mike Tannenbaum will talk about, how that complicates matters. Lewis is obviously either not high at all on Baker or loves the young quarterback. So I get where Lewis is coming from, but I'll go with the known over the unknown. I'll go with Baker Mayfield. He's only 20, just turned 27 years of age. He's had success in the NFL. Had a great year 2 years ago when everything around him was clicking. He was out there performing at a high level, led his team to the first playoff victory on the road since I was 9 years old. Okay, I'm going to be 6.
All right. I want everybody to notice right here, right now, absolutely nothing Mel Kiper said is wrong. In a lot of ways, you could say Mel Kiper is right now. But, and there is a but, then this happens.
62 in July. Do the math on that. I think when you look at Baker, a highly motivated kid, I think people are looking at him negatively. I think it's a little bit unrealistic. It's unforgiving. It's unreasonable, in my opinion, considering the offensive line issues, the wide receiver issues, the running back issues, and the...
Did he just... Hold on.
My opinion, considering the offensive line issues, the wide receiver issues, the running back issues, reasonable in my opinion, considering the offensive line issues, the wide receiver issues, the running back issues,
and this is how you can be right while being absolutely wrong at the same time. Is Baker Mayfield a worse option than a lot of these draft picks? Absolutely not. He's a better option in a lot of different ways. But it's not because his potential has been misrepresented by not having enough around him. That's an absolute myth. I think you can make the argument that the Browns did a better job supporting Baker Mayfield with talent than the Ravens did with Lamar Jackson. And one of those quarterbacks won MVP and the other one did not, right? Support, especially running back support and offensive line support. I mean, wide receiving support is kind of debatable. It's really debatable. Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham. Like, the wide receivers weren't trash. And again, Mel was so right for so long, but then just invalidated the whole point by trying to get that extra inch in there. And that happens because Mel's not an NFL guy. He's a college scout. He watches college football primarily. I'm not saying he doesn't keep up with the NFL, but he's not going to be intimately involved with the doings of all 32 teams, right? Like, he's not Dan Orlovsky. That's not what he's asked to do. He's asked to scout college guys for NFL teams, or at least for viewers of NFL teams. So that's kind of a forgivable mistake. I wouldn't be too hard on good old Mel for that. It's just, it's just a bad take. It's a bad reason to have the right answer, right? Now let's jump to, I think this is Tannenbaum.
In your head vigorously, go.
Yeah, here's what I know, that by NFL standards, Baker Mayfield is too small, too short, and he bloviates on social media. I'd rather have guys like Malik Willis, who is taller than Baker Mayfield.
Dog. First of all, like, this is his only, like, bar, right? His only bar is Baker's slow and short. He ran a 4.8. Like, Baker's not slow. He's not fast. He's absolutely not fast. But he's as fast as, like, Patrick Mahomes. Like, he's not a statue. He's not, like, a 5 flat guy out there at 6 foot 200. But that's just the weirdest thing. And then, what's the other thing that's weird to me, man? Malik Willis is like 2 fractions of an inch taller than Baker Mayfield. Like, come on, man. If height's an issue for Baker Mayfield, it's definitely an issue for Malik Willis. Just say he has overwhelming athleticism to, like, avoid having the same issues as Baker Mayfield. But don't make the man taller just to fit your argument, Mike. That makes no sense. They're both 6'1". They're both 6'1". Like, barely on the other sides of 6'1". But Mike has body dysmorphia for these players at other points in this video, so I'll just leave it at that as we go on, because there's something he says in this video that's just truly outrageous.
Faster, and we know that he has an unlimited ceiling. He's also $18 million a year cheaper than what you have to pay Baker Mayfield. Kenny Pickett, I know he has the 27 fumbles, but I'll take his upside as well. So maybe Desmond Ridder. I agree with Lewis.
All right, man. I'm sorry if I keep pausing. I need to take it. Hold on, man. Kenny Pickett got more. All right, man. Okay, if you're a fan of Kenny Pickett, just click off the video now. Subscribe, ding the notification bell, do all that. But just click off the video right now, because you're going to hear some Kenny Pickett slander. And look, if I'm wrong about Kenny Pickett, like I was wrong on other quarterbacks, I'll stand tall on that and, eat my words or whatever you want me to do. I ain't even apologizing, but, I'll stand tall on it and say I made a mistake or I was wrong, whatever. Why do people think Kenny Pickett has any upside? Honestly, he had one good year when the ACC was the worst it has ever been. I would argue that Desmond Ridder, his last year in college, played tougher competition across the board than Kenny Pickett. Now, knowing that, let's ask ourselves, if Kenny Pickett, instead of playing that senior year at Pitt, transferred down to Houston and had that senior year that he had, would we be looking at Kenny Pickett as a first-round pick? Absolutely not. We would be having level of competition concerns. Why are we not doing that this year when the best team in the ACC is usually Clemson, and they weren't even in the top 25 this year? Like, this was a terrible ACC. Name me who was in the ACC championship game right now. Exactly. It was a terrible conference this year. And yeah, he had one good year there. The other 2 years were atrocious. He had like 12 touchdowns a season. I'm not being hyperbolic. Go look up Kenny Pickett's stats before his senior year, and they're truly atrocious. He has 8.25-inch hands, like just the smallest hands. Teddy Bridgewater had like 9-inch hands, and that was an issue. Joe Burrow, people thought that would be an issue. He had 9.25. This man has 8-inch hands. I have bigger hands than that. I'm 5'8", dog. Like, I'm not tall at all, and I got bigger hands than Kenny Pickett. And he has had fumble issues. Look at Daniel Jones, another guy with small hands that has had issues holding on to the football. So everything we know about the NFL tells us that Kenny Pickett ain't gonna be that dude. He's not even faster than Baker Mayfield, by the way. Like, I think they run the same 40. But he's not. There's really no upside to talk about. And I think sometimes we do this thing when it comes to the draft where we feel like we got to have both sides of the equation for a player, when that just isn't the case. And we end up overrating some things, right? One thing about a quarterback is there's no such thing as the low floor quarterback, right? A low floor quarterback is just a quarterback with a small ceiling, right? People want to say low floor when they say small ceiling, but sometimes you could be low floor and low ceiling. That's what Kenny Pickett is. At best, he could be Kirk Cousins. At worst, he could be Nathan Peterman, dog. Like, I really think we're underestimating Kenny Pickett's ability to be Nathan Peterman. Like, I really do. But hey, if you like Kenny Pickett in that one good season that he had in the ACC, in the worst year the ACC has had since they have been a major conference, like since the Big East was around, and you think that was impressive, all right, man, take that with the top 10 pick. I won't be mad because it's not my team, but I wouldn't draft Kenny Pickett in the top 10 to save my life. If that ages poorly, it ages poorly, but that's just all I'm going to say.
Maybe that's the inflection point. I can't win a championship with Baker Mayfield. By NFL standards, he's slow and short. He ran 4.85, and that's why he gets hurt. These other guys, to me, have intriguing upsides athletically and from an intangible standpoint. There's a reason 31 other teams don't want Baker Mayfield right now.
Explain to me where Kenny Pickett is a better athlete. Like, the only guy you can say is a better athlete is Malik Willis. But other than that, like, it's a hard argument to make, man. Come on. If Baker Mayfield came out of college right now and was available in this draft, he'd be the number 1 overall pick. Or at least the 2nd overall pick. There's no, like, Malik Willis, Baker Mayfield, that's an argument. But Baker Mayfield, anybody else in this draft class, that's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. Baker Mayfield has played and started and had good games in the NFL. I'm not confident that anybody else in this class is going to be like a good NFL quarterback. But that's the first take from Mike Tannenbaum that I feel like I had to set on fire. Let's go to the next take that he had later on in this video. Actually, we're going to hear from Louis Riddick a little bit too, hear what he has to say about it, and then we'll carry on.
Swing. I'm going with one of these two young quarterbacks, despite the fact that they are unproven commodities, and some of them, especially in the case of Malik Willis's, in terms of Malik Willis, have had, let's just say, uneven performances in their college career against less than stellar competition. I'm still willing to bet on the upside, bet on my program, bet on my developmental program as far as getting these guys ready to go and getting them to play at a high level in a short amount of time. Now, like Mike said also, look, when it comes to Desmond Ridder, I think that's a little bit of a toss-up. I think there I may go ahead and go with Baker Mayfield, especially if I feel comfortable with the with the level of awareness that he hopefully will show in terms of what he needs to change about himself and his.
All right, look, y'all know I'm not Mr. Baker Mayfield's going to become an MVP candidate or anything like that. I've never been on that train. But the hubris of GMs is going to get people in trouble, right? Now, there is an argument to be made about how much of an upgrade is Baker eventually over some of these guys, and if that upgrade is ultimately enough to save your job as a GM. But the ideal itself that the Browns, or not the Browns, that a team can draft somebody who is low floor, low ceiling like Kenny Pickett in the first round and pay him $7 million in that first year, and think that's a better option than just trading for Baker Mayfield and having the Browns eat $10 million of the 18 for a 6th or 5th round pick is on its face flat ridiculous. And I think we'll see it. It's going to be one of those things where people were like, how did this happen, right? Now, the truth on how this happened is Baker Mayfield has helped, not helped. He has made himself an undesirable asset in the way that he's handled this. And that, on top of him having a bad year, that on top of him coming off an injury has just lowered his trade value to the point to where people are really considering, hey, man, maybe Desmond Ridder over Baker Mayfield in the 2nd round, which is ridiculous, right? If you really need a starter right now, Baker Mayfield's the best possible option, right? It's Baker Mayfield, Jimmy Garoppolo, Malik Willis, everybody else. That's really what it is. But the fact that the current conversation around Baker Mayfield is so negative. Everybody is caught up in this zeitgeist where, it's just negative, negative, negative on Baker, to where people aren't really able to see the actual truth in it, which is if you get Baker Mayfield for a 5th round pick and you don't draft the quarterback in the 1st round of this draft, you are absolutely making a better decision than taking a chance on Matt Corral. You know what I mean? So this is just where the hubris of a GM can get themselves in a little bit of trouble, because they think that they can mold and fix anybody, right? Because that's part of the job that they're asked to do. But in reality, some dudes are talented enough to make it in the NFL and other dudes aren't. And I would rather go in the draft class like this, where there is no Josh Allen, there is no Patrick Mahomes, there is no high ceiling project guy that blows your mind, right? Even Malik Willis, he's not one of those two, right? He's not as talented or as impressive as those two, right? Maybe if he was standing at 6'5" instead of like 6 3/4, it would be more impressive. But since he's not like that, he's a interesting prospect, an intriguing one. Not one that would go number 1 overall, though, based off of potential. And in a class like that, you take a sure thing. You take a dude who's played before, especially if you can get him for less than a 3rd round pick. But the hubris of GMs will not allow themselves to see that reality, because they want to see it in a reality in which they can get the most credit possible sometimes. And that means drafting the next guy, even though the guy ain't there. And that's where the hubris of GMs can get themselves in trouble.
His conduct.
Oh, so I got like 2 minutes left here. Let me get a different question in, and you're all getting a sense.
Okay, let me get the
of
question
what our
in.
production calls are like, by the way, as we prepare for the draft. Lewis and Mel just yelling at each other. It's endlessly entertaining. We should put those on YouTube. But Mel, right now, take Mayfield out of the conversation. If you had, you desperately needed a quarterback, and you have the pick that can get one, which of the quarterbacks in this draft do you take? Who's QB1 for you personally?
We're going to skip to Mike Tannenbaum's answer here, because I think he's the only one that says something truly interesting.
Big believer in how he is wired. I'm a big believer in the production that he had this past year, in the type of offense that he had it in. And I think he is someone who is going to get better in the NFL, provided everything else around him also continues to get better. I just think he's one of those guys that is going to play high-level winning football.
Mike T, how about you?
I'm going Pickett. His athleticism in the pocket is somewhat underrated, and he's just a bigger frame than Malik Willis. And over time in our sport, at our level, the bigger man wins over the smaller guy. So taking nothing away from Malik Willis, I think Kenny Pickett has a higher floor and a slightly higher ceiling.
Mike Tannenbaum out here scouting quarterback like he scouting defensive line. Like, what in the world is that philosophy at quarterback? Like, Mike Tannenbaum would have took Jamarcus Russell and Paxton Lynch #1 and 2 overall in their respective drafts, because they big. They some big, like, just draft Jordan Davis and make him play quarterback if that's your philosophy. Like, what is this philosophy? You know how much Mark Sanchez had to hurt Mike Tannenbaum? Like, Mark Sanchez, he must think about that man and what he did to Mike Tannenbaum's, well, what Mike Tannenbaum feels like Mark Sanchez did to his career every day, because he spends every waking second that he's on one of these national shows trying to avoid drafting Mark Sanchez. Like, I bet you if you ask Mike Tannenbaum what are his top 5 regrets, Mark Sanchez is in there. He is in there, because everything he says is saying, dog, don't draft Mark Sanchez. And then he ends up drafting Mark Sanchez because of it, because absolutely Kenny Pickett is just Mark Sanchez, dog. Like, that is absolutely who Kenny Pickett is. At the end of the day, at best, if you get 2 AFC championship games out of Kenny Pickett, that is the best case scenario for him. And he says go Kenny Pickett, because Kenny Pickett is 2 inches taller and like not a pound heavier than Malik Willis. Malik Willis is absolutely more physically impressive than Kenny Pickett. It's not even close. Just Google a picture of both of these dudes and tell me which one you think is the more impressive athlete. That is ridiculous. Like, I feel bad for Mike Tannenbaum, man. I hope he gets over whatever it is that Mark Sanchez did to his career. But boy, Mike in trouble, man. But you see what I mean on how there were some people in that video that were right at some times, right? Mel was right. I think Lewis was right at times. Mike Tannenbaum wasn't really right at any time, but that's just Mike's kind of thing. But even he had a point or two. But how you get to that conclusion is more important than if you're right or wrong, right? Because if you get to that conclusion in a way that is sound and that makes sense, whether you're right or wrong, we know that you're competent. And being competent is what matters, right? If you just are sporadically right and wrong because you just be saying stuff, you're not competent. So, that's just, I guess, a lessons in competence and a lesson in why some of these dudes who be on ESPN, and look, I'm not hating on them. They doing what they got to do to get their bread. And at the end of the day, get your bread. And I'm not saying all of them are bad. I'm only really saying Mike Tannenbaum was bad. I think everybody else is fine. But sometimes you could tell that they stretch these dudes too far out and they have them outside of a range of competency. And I think we saw that especially with Mel Kiper when he said the Browns didn't have good running backs, good wide receivers, a good offensive line ever around Baker Mayfield. And we saw this a lot with Mike Tannenbaum, who honestly just spends his whole time on any show on ESPN begging people not to draft Mark Sanchez. And then unironically picks the guy that is definitely Mark Sanchez in this draft class. But that's my thoughts on that video. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and hit that like button. But again, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.